The 1990s were a golden age for science fiction, bold, daring, and unafraid to push boundaries. Yet some visions went too far, igniting controversy and drawing the wrath of censors. From violent dystopias to apocalyptic nightmares, these films were banned, butchered, or buried. Today, we unearth the forgotten rebels Hollywood hoped you'd never see again. 1. Fortress, 1992. In a decade filled with dystopian thrillers, Fortress stood apart for its sheer brutality and unsettling plausibility. Directed by Stuart Gordon, the mind behind cult horror classics, the film imagined a chilling future where overpopulation is controlled by strict one-child laws. Christopher Lambert plays John Brennick, a man sentenced to a maximum security underground prison for trying to have a second child with his wife. This wasn't just another grim sci-fi setting. The prison in Fortress is a technological nightmare, a place of constant surveillance, invasive body scans, and implants that can cause crippling pain at the flick of a switch. Guards are as much machines as men, and punishments are designed not just to hurt, but to break the human spirit. Censors in Malaysia, parts of South America, and even certain European countries took issue with what they called degrading depictions of human suffering. Critics accused the movie of crossing the line into sadism, pointing to the harrowing intestinator sequences as evidence. Stuart Gordon defended his vision, saying the film was a warning about unchecked state power and the dangers of trading freedom for safety. Ironically, the bans only helped the movie's reputation among underground sci-fi fans. Bootleg copies circulated in markets and video stores, turning Fortress into a forbidden thrill for those who wanted their sci-fi raw and uncompromising. Over time, the film gained a cult following, praised for its world-building and its eerie foresight, into debates over surveillance, bodily autonomy, and authoritarian overreach. Fortress remains a relic of an era when sci-fi dared to be confrontational and paid the price in censorship scars. 2. Hardware, 1990. Long before cyberpunk became a mainstream aesthetic, Hardware delivered a rusty, blood-soaked vision of the future that made censors squirm. Directed by Richard Stanley, the film unfolds in a scorched wasteland where the air is toxic, the cities are suffocating, and scavengers pick through the remnants of a ruined Earth. Our protagonist, played by Dylan McDermott, brings home salvaged robot parts as a gift for his girlfriend, not knowing they belong to a Mark 13, a military droid with a single directive: extermination. From the moment the machine reactivates, Hardware becomes a claustrophobic nightmare. The cramped apartment setting amplifies the tension, while the film's gritty industrial style blurs the line between horror and sci-fi. It was visually stunning, but also relentless in its violence. Critics praised the film's atmosphere, but blasted its unflinching gore, especially in the UK, Ireland, and parts of Asia, where it faced bans or heavy cuts for sustained depictions of mutilation. Stanley defended the film's intensity, arguing that its brutality was a direct reflection of a dying world that valued machines over people. He infused the movie with influences from underground comics, punk music, and 80s counterculture, creating a sensory overload that felt uncomfortably real. Despite limited theatrical runs due to censorship, Hardware found life in VHS and late-night cable screenings. The very imagery that had frightened censors, the sparks, the smoke, the blood against rusted metal, became its calling card in cult cinema circles. Today, it's recognized as a cyberpunk landmark, a low-budget marvel that turned its constraints into a claustrophobic, unforgettable aesthetic. Hardware didn't just push boundaries, it chewed through them with a steel jaw. Third Event Horizon, 1997. When Event Horizon hit theaters, audiences expected a sci-fi rescue mission. What they got instead was a descent into cosmic madness that still haunts the genre. Directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, the film follows a crew investigating a spaceship that vanished into a black hole and mysteriously reappeared. The deeper they probe, the clearer it becomes that the ship brought something back, something far beyond human comprehension. The film's most infamous scenes were flashes of the other side, chaotic, blood-soaked visions of torment that barely lasted seconds but lodged themselves in viewers' minds. Paramount reportedly cut several minutes of these sequences after test audiences reacted with visible distress. Even so, the final film remained so intense that it was censored or delayed in parts of Europe and Australia. Critics at the time were divided. Some dismissed it as gratuitous shock value. Others saw it as a chilling fusion of sci-fi and supernatural horror, a rare movie that dared to look directly into the abyss. Over the years, whispers about the lost footage, allegedly destroyed in a warehouse mishap, elevated Event Horizon to near-mythic status among horror and sci-fi fans. Its influence is undeniable. Video games like Dead Space and films like Sunshine owe debts to its oppressive atmosphere and vision of space as a place not of exploration, but of damnation. What made Event Horizon dangerous to censors is exactly what makes it unforgettable today. It dared to suggest that the true horror of the universe isn't alien life, but what happens when humans touch something they were never meant to. Fourth, Existencies, 1999. At the tail end of the 90s, David Cronenberg returned with Existencies, a disturbing, hallucinatory exploration of virtual reality. Starring Jennifer Jason Leigh as game designer Allegra Geller and Jude Law as her reluctant bodyguard, the film blurs the line between reality and game worlds. Its organic bioports, fleshy, pulsating sockets implanted into players' spines, immediately unsettled audiences and became a key reason for censorship disputes. When it premiered, Existencies was hailed by some as a visionary look at immersive gaming and feared by others as a dangerous influence on impressionable minds. Several countries in Asia delayed release over body horror concerns, and smaller European territories edited out sequences showing the invasive connections between humans and game pods. Censors claimed these moments blurred intimacy and technological corruption in ways that would disturb moral order. Cronenberg used the controversy to his advantage, framing the film as a commentary on obsession. How immersive entertainment could erode identity and dissolve reality. The movie's grotesque design, with its biomechanical guns and living game controllers, evoked the unsettling work of H.R. Giger while maintaining Cronenberg's trademark fascination with the fusion of flesh and machine. In hindsight, Existencies feels prophetic. Its vision of gamers losing themselves in multi-layered simulations echoes modern debates over virtual worlds, online addiction, and the ethics of neural technology. For years, it was quietly passed between sci-fi aficionados in uncut form, its most disturbing sequences still whispered about in online forums. While overshadowed at the time by The Matrix, Existencies has since found its audience. It remains one of the boldest and strangest sci-fi films of the decade, banned in some markets, misunderstood in many others, and destined to outlive both its critics and the controversy it caused. 5. The Lawnmower Man, 1992. The Lawnmower Man arrived during the early 90s wave of virtual reality fascination. Directed by Brett Leonard and starring Jeff Fahey and Pierce Brosnan, it tells the story of a simple gardener, Job, who becomes the subject of a radical intelligence enhancement experiment. As his mental abilities expand beyond human comprehension, his ambitions and his danger to the world grow uncontrollably. The film's combination of VR imagery, rapid human evolution, and psychological breakdown struck a nerve with censors. In countries like Singapore and Malaysia, certain sequences were cut for what officials deemed disturbing transformation content, including scenes where Job's body and mind dissolve into digital form. The UK passed it with edits, while in other regions it faced moral backlash for depicting human transcendence in blasphemous terms. Adding to the controversy, Stephen King sued to have his name removed from the marketing, arguing it bore little resemblance to his original short story. The legal battle only added more intrigue, fueling underground interest in the uncut version. While critics were divided, The Lawnmower Man found a second life on VHS, where the director's cut restored over 30 minutes of footage, much of it the same material that had sparked censorship complaints. Fans were drawn to its surreal CGI sequences, which at the time were cutting edge, if now dated. Though it's often remembered for its early digital effects, the film's legacy lies in its eerie prediction of humanity's uneasy relationship with virtual existence. In the early 90s, its vision of minds uploading into machines felt outrageous. Today, it feels unnervingly possible. 6. Cube, 1997. A minimalist yet deeply unsettling piece of Canadian science fiction, Cube traps its characters inside a vast structure of interconnected rooms, each rigged with deadly traps. Directed by Vincenzo Natali, it was part psychological experiment, part allegory, and part nightmare. Censorship debates erupted almost immediately. While Canada embraced it as bold independent cinema, parts of Europe and Asia balked at the sudden, shocking violence of the trap scenes. Several countries cut the infamous wire mesh death, which showed a character sliced into perfect cubes, calling it unacceptably graphic. Others objected to the film's relentless atmosphere of hopelessness, arguing it offered no moral resolution. What made Cube so unnerving was its absence of explanation. There are no clear villains, no identifiable reasons for the traps, only the cold, mechanical certainty of death for those who fail to solve the puzzle. This ambiguity made it a tough sell for censors accustomed to stories with clear moral frameworks. Over time, Cube gained a devoted following. Its stark production design, oppressive silence, and mathematical precision turned it into a cult favorite, influencing everything from Saw to escape room culture. The uncut version, with all of its grueling trap sequences intact, became a sought-after import among sci-fi and horror fans in countries where it had been edited. Even today, Cube stands out as an example of how 90s sci-fi didn't always need huge budgets to unsettle. Sometimes, all it took was a room, a mystery, and the cruel certainty that survival wasn't guaranteed. 7. Gattaca, 1997. At first glance, Gattaca hardly looks like the kind of film to spark bans or censorship. Directed by Andrew Niccol and starring Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman, and Jude Law, it's a sleek, cerebral vision of a future ruled by genetic engineering. In this world, one's DNA determines life's opportunities, and invalids, those born naturally, are relegated to menial labor. The controversy came not from gore or action, but from ideas. Several countries in Asia and the Middle East delayed or blocked its release due to what they deemed morally and religiously subversive themes. By suggesting that humanity might engineer its own hierarchy, Gattaca was accused of promoting dangerous science and undermining the sanctity of natural life. In France, early screenings provoked public debate over real-world genetic testing laws, and some school boards attempted to block it from being shown in classrooms. The film's restrained tone didn't shield it from political backlash. Its core narrative of Vincent Freeman, a man fighting to overcome genetic discrimination and achieve his dream of space travel, was read as a critique of classism, eugenics, and the dehumanizing potential of science. To governments wary of stoking social unrest, that was reason enough to keep it under wraps. Ironically, the bans only reinforced the film's message about systemic oppression. In the years since, Gattaca has been embraced as a cautionary tale and even used in university ethics courses. Its aesthetic, all cool blues, minimalist sets, and precision framing, hides a quietly radical heart. More than 2 decades later, its questions about genetic destiny feel more urgent than ever, especially in an age where real-world genetic modification is no longer theoretical. Gattaca may not have shocked with violence, but it frightened censors with its unsettling plausibility. 8. Starship Troopers, 1997. Paul Verhoeven's Starship Troopers was marketed as a flashy space action spectacle, but beneath the bug-blasting exterior lay a razor-sharp satire of militarism and propaganda. Based loosely on Robert A. Heinlein's novel, it follows young soldiers fighting a brutal interstellar war against an insectoid alien race. What drew censorship was a combination of unflinching battlefield violence and biting political commentary. The film's over-the-top gore, soldiers ripped apart, brains sucked out, limbs torn, pushed it into restricted ratings worldwide. Some countries, including Ireland and parts of Southeast Asia, banned it entirely for gratuitous bloodshed. Others objected to what they perceived as a glorification of fascist imagery, even though Verhoeven intended it as parody. The satire was so deadpan that many viewers and censors missed it. Verhoeven himself admitted that he modeled the film's look on Leni Riefenstahl's propaganda films to highlight the seductive nature of authoritarianism. But in regions sensitive to political symbolism, the visual parallels were enough to trigger bans. Over time, Starship Troopers has been reappraised as one of the smartest and most subversive sci-fi films of the 90s. Its commentary on war, nationalism, and manufactured consent resonates even more in a modern media landscape. The uncut version, with all its gleefully overblown violence, has become a cult favorite, embraced for both its spectacle and its sly intellect. It's proof that sometimes the most dangerous films aren't the ones shouting their message. They're the ones hiding it in plain sight. 9. Strange Days, 1995. Kathryn Bigelow's Strange Days is a cyberpunk noir set on the eve of the new millennium, following a black market dealer of recorded memories that allow users to experience someone else's life. Starring Ralph Fiennes, Angela Bassett, and Juliette Lewis, the film dives headlong into themes of voyeurism, corruption, and societal decay. Its realistic first-person playback sequences caused uproar. The technology depicted was fictional, but the intensity of the point-of-view shots unsettled censors who feared the immersive style would make disturbing scenes feel too real. Germany, Singapore, and several Middle Eastern countries either banned or heavily edited the film, citing psychological harm and graphic intensity. Bigelow didn't hold back in portraying a crumbling society. Riots, police brutality, and institutional rot run through the story. In some regions, authorities saw this depiction as dangerously close to incitement, especially in politically tense climates. While it failed at the box office, Strange Days has since been hailed as ahead of its time, predicting debates about surveillance, virtual reality, and the ethics of recorded experience. Its raw energy, pulsing soundtrack, and fearless social commentary make it as relevant now as it was controversial then. Today, it's remembered as one of the most daring sci-fi thrillers of the decade, a film that used the future to hold up a mirror to the darkest corners of the present and paid for that honesty with years of censorship battles. 10. Johnny Mnemonic, 1995. In the mid-90s, cyberpunk was still a niche obsession, but Johnny Mnemonic tried to bring it into the mainstream. Directed by Robert Longo and based on William Gibson's short story, the film stars Keanu Reeves as a data courier with an implanted storage device in his brain, tasked with delivering dangerous information that could topple corporations. The film's futuristic tech, gritty urban decay, and chaotic narrative split critics, but censorship issues emerged in multiple countries. Japan objected to certain depictions of high-tech Yakuza violence, while several Southeast Asian markets demanded edits to scenes showing grotesque cybernetic enhancements and brain modification surgeries. In Germany, censors trimmed moments they felt glorified black market tech crime. What truly stoked the controversy was the film's dystopian portrayal of corporate overreach and bioengineered pandemics, ideas that struck uncomfortably close to real-world anxieties. For some authorities, this wasn't entertainment, it was a dangerous critique of power structures. Despite its uneven reception, Johnny Mnemonic became a cult classic, partly thanks to its uncut version circulating on VHS and Laserdisc. Its blend of lo-fi tech grit, surreal imagery, including Dolph Lundgren as a cybernetic street preacher, and Gibson's prophetic vision of the internet made it a fascinating time capsule. Today, it's often remembered as a flawed but ambitious warning about digital overload, data privacy, and the commodification of human life. It might not have predicted smartphones or social media, but its world of information as currency feels eerily familiar. And that's precisely what made some censors nervous. 11. The City of Lost Children, 1995. Jean-Pierre Jeunet and Marc Caro's The City of Lost Children is a French sci-fi fantasy unlike anything Hollywood was producing in the 90s. It tells the story of Crank, a villain who kidnaps children to steal their dreams, set in a surreal steampunk world of giant machinery, twisted architecture, and strange creatures. Though artistically acclaimed, its dreamlike yet unsettling visuals triggered censorship in several countries. The Netherlands and parts of Scandinavia restricted screenings for younger audiences, claiming its grotesque imagery, including mechanical surgery, mutated creatures, and dark carnival aesthetics, could psychologically harm children. In the US, it received an R rating largely for tone and disturbing atmosphere rather than explicit content. Critics praised its handcrafted sets, rich color palette, and fairy tale meets nightmare aesthetic, but the film's lack of traditional moral clarity troubled some cultural boards. The idea of a villain harvesting dreams struck certain markets as dangerously subversive, particularly in regions sensitive to themes of childhood innocence under threat. Over time, the movie developed a loyal cult following. It influenced visual storytelling in later films like Pan's Labyrinth, and even certain video games. For those who saw it in its original uncut form, it remains a haunting reminder that not all censorship is about violence. Sometimes it's about the fear of strange, unfiltered imagination. 12. Dark City, 1998. Before The Matrix made simulation theory a blockbuster concept, Dark City explored a similar nightmare. Directed by Alex Proyas, it follows John Murdoch, a man who wakes up with no memory in a city where mysterious beings known as the Strangers manipulate reality every night, erasing and rewriting lives. Censors in some Asian and Middle Eastern countries objected to the film's surreal reality-bending sequences, claiming they blurred moral lines and could be psychologically destabilizing. In certain European regions, distributors trimmed scenes of body transformations and the haunting tuning effects, fearing they were too disturbing for general audiences. Thematically, Dark City unsettled more than it entertained. It's a noir-tinged puzzle about free will, identity, and the possibility that the world is nothing more than an elaborate illusion. These existential ideas, paired with eerie visuals and moments of sudden violence, made it a prime target for markets wary of challenging narratives. Though it struggled at the box office, Dark City has since been hailed as a sci-fi masterpiece. Its striking cinematography, oppressive set design, and mind-bending plot structure have earned it a permanent place in the cult canon. Many fans compare it favorably to The Matrix, noting that it was exploring similar ideas before Hollywood caught on. For those who saw it uncut, Dark City was more than a film. It was an unsettling suggestion that reality itself might be a construct and that knowledge alone was dangerous enough to ban. The 90s proved that science fiction could be more than space battles and shiny gadgets. It could challenge power, unsettle comfort, and even provoke governments. These banned films remind us that the most dangerous stories aren't always the loudest. Sometimes they're the ones that slip under the skin and refuse to let go.